Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday Morning Blitz. It is NFL Week 5. It is I, Jackson Roberts. It is he, Cale Clinton. And Cale coming to you from the StreamYard platform for the first time. If you can see us on screen, you see our witty little captions. Cale, yours is very optimistic about our favorite football team. You spent the week up in Vermont, as I understand, ignoring Patriots football. So how is that for you?
I am not subject to the horrors that man has wrought upon us. Good weekend. Bad football. Really haven't watched much. Have subjected myself to I've watched some quality games this morning. One of which great performance by that Steelers team. Saints team, not Steelers team. Did not watch that Ravens Steelers game. They're the only division leader with a negative point differential. Speaking of the Steelers, I'm flying by the seat of my pants, but we'll get into it.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw a mess across the league. I don't think it was disputable. I think every team, for the most part, showed some sort of flaws, but let's get into it because I think the one team that didn't show any flaws, Cale, the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know what else to say about them at this point. They're an amalgam of talent, the likes of which I've pretty much never seen before. Brock Purdy's 10-0 as a regular season quarterback, so that's cool, I guess. And they just curb stomped the team that, people were saying was probably on par with them. I liked the Niners to win that game, but I wasn't thinking the talent gap was massive. But 42-10, and honestly, the Niners left some points on the table in that first half. Not only was it no contest, but I'd be terrified of them if I were any other team across the league this year.
It's crazy that Brock Purdy's kind of mid, but it just doesn't matter. I'm not trying to be flippant. Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. He is a better passer than Kyle Shanahan has had at any point in his Niners tenure. But when you just also add the fact that he's got 2 top 15 wide receivers, top 3 tight end, an elite left tackle, probably the best running back in football. They're an absolute juggernaut. It's insanely impressive. Cowboys offense has kind of looked a little stagnant. This is the first time or maybe second time that the Mike McCarthy offense has kind of showed its uglier side. But this is about the Niners. Jackson, I don't know how many times that we've flipped and overreacted to this looks like the best team in football right now this season. We said it week 1 and feel vindicated in saying it. Niners are the best team in football. It doesn't look particularly close. The only other undefeated team is the Eagles, and they really haven't hit their max gear at any point yet. Bills are actively falling apart before our very eyes.
Guys,
Dolphins defense, isn't that great? Every other team has some every other elite team has some considerable flaws. Dallas offense a little stagnant. Chiefs offense doesn't have the weapons it typically has. Jets don't have a quarterback. There's no other fully complete team out there, and the Niners just feel head and shoulders above everyone.
Yeah, it's funny to think that you could build the most complete team by not necessarily neglecting the quarterback position, but deprioritizing it, especially in terms of spending. And I think the contrast was on stark display last night with Trey Lance, who the Niners spent all their draft capital on as the quarterback, dressed as the emergency backup for the Dallas Cowboys. And I want to make this a little bit more about the Cowboys because I just feel like that was one of the worst games I've seen Dak Prescott play. But I don't know. It's also kind of predictable when he's under fire all night, and CeeDee Lamb's the only guy that's ever open on that offense for the most part. And the minute that Tony Pollard wasn't striking early and often in the ground game, I think even Collinsworth said or it was Matthew Berry said on the pregame, they're going to have to try and ground and pound the Niners. It's not like it's easy to run on them, but maybe more accomplishable than trying to go through the air because they're going to be on you so fast in the backfield. And I don't know. I don't know if the Cowboys, it felt like a sign that they're less positioned to compete this year than most would have said following the first couple weeks. And I almost think they're not only not in that elite conversation anymore, but I mean, would you put the Lions ahead of them at this point? Would you put the Seahawks ahead of them at this point? Like, it's really starting to be a conversation in the NFC that I didn't think we were going to have.
Well, first off, credit to Steve Wilkes, who kind of just took CeeDee Lamb fully out of the game, and it highlights just how thin the Cowboys kind of are without their elite number one guy. In terms of teams I'd put ahead of them, a Diggsless Cowboys team. I don't know if it's quite like, five. I don't think they're the fifth best team in the NFC. I still think they're flawed, but the Lions are probably a little further in the conversation. Seahawks have looked good, but are woefully underperforming in so many key metrics. They're absolutely awful on both sides of the ball on late downs. They scoring wise, the Seahawks have only been able, every one of their touchdowns this season has come from 10 yards or in. Defensively, they've only allowed 8 red zone trips, but have allowed 7 red zone touchdowns. They're getting mauled in key, crucial game changing situations, which maybe suggests they're woefully underperforming despite their good start. It may also suggest that there's key signs that they're not this good and they could potentially break down if this is kind of where they're at right now. But yeah, I still think Dallas is a somewhat distant first tier team or a top of second tier team. It's tough to kind of fully pin them. They feel like they're in no man's land right now. Dak kind of ran this offense as just to your point about Dak having his worst game, kind of ran this offense as the new McCarthy offense was supposed to kind of be designed as let's try and minimize the amount of turnover worthy opportunities that Dak kind of puts up. And when you base your whole offensive philosophy around that, and then you have a game like this, there isn't really upside to be had. Now you've just got to completely go back to the drawing board. Chris Collinsworth was saying a point during that broadcast that they haven't done the full install of this team. They haven't gotten into their 5-step dropbacks. They haven't gotten into their real explosive generating plays. I don't know if that's how an offense is installed. I feel like you kind of put it all in and then revisit things. But if that is how they installed it, a full indictment on one Michael McCarthy. That's bad. You don't do that. You install the full thing and you optimize for this team. And now I just don't know. I hate saying it 5 weeks in, but yeah, I don't know how this team gets better to beat San Francisco. Things will shake out. Injuries will happen. It's part of the game. We'll see how both these teams weather the next 11, 12 weeks, but it's not looking great.
Yeah, I want to make the case fully that the Lions are just ahead of the Cowboys right now. Firstly, the Cowboys dropped from 5th to 12th in overall DVOA this week, but the Lions were already 3rd, and they stayed at 3rd. The Cowboys, we're talking about how dominant they are through 4 weeks. Those 3 wins that they now have come against the Giants, who are dead last, the Patriots, who are 27th, and the Jets in the first game they played with Zach Wilson. And then they've now lost to the Cardinals, who are still, I mean, they're spunky, but they're a bottom tier team.
Yeah.
And the number one team just curb stomped them in a way that I can barely find the words to describe. Meanwhile, the Lions have a win over the Chiefs. Jared Goff's way ahead of Dak in all the efficiency metrics. And I think if the Cowboys roll up to Ford Field tomorrow to play a playoff game, I think they're coming home empty. And you talked about offensive install. Look at what Ben Johnson's doing with that team yesterday. They're running the inside handoff, reverse flea flicker. They're doing Jared Goff under center, snap between his legs to David Montgomery. It's night and day right now with not just overall. I mean, I get it was against Panthers, but creativity wise and just like the faith I have in that offense's versatility and ability to be explosive, it's gotten impressive on their end, and I'm really down on Dallas in the same, basic overall category.
It's a thing I just want to follow. It's not quite like, listen, I was banging the Dan Campbell drum louder than anyone else. It's just a thing I want to follow because outside of the Chiefs win, it's a competent Packers win, a pretty strong dismantling of the Falcons and this Panthers win, but there's just not a lot of defense here. Like, you get 37 hung on them by an okay Seahawks team, with how quarterback friendly the LaFleur Packers offense is. 20 feels like a bit of an indictment. I think 24 is a season high for the Panthers. I can double check that, but
yeah, I mean that game was
the
over.
defense is kind of only getting thinner. Like Mosley just blew out his other ACL after coming back 2 years ago from a left torn ACL. This is his right ACL now, but also not a season high. Panthers hung 27 on the Seahawks, but I don't know. We'll continue to see. Yeah, I definitely hold out hope for the Lions, but I just thought this was like they don't have a roster as talented as this Cowboys one does. They have a better play caller in Ben Johnson. But like both sides of the ball, I get it's a performance driven league, not a league played on paper. But I just like this Cowboys team should be better. This Cowboys team should be better than this Lions team. And Ben Johnson versus Mike McCarthy cannot be the sole driver in the differentiation between those two teams.
Well, like you said, let's keep an eye on it. Because again, I think right now, Jared Goff greater than signed Dak Prescott, as crazy as that would have been to say 2 years ago. And I mean, they put up 42 points yesterday with no Gibbs, no St. Brown. So there's a lot of juice there on that offense that I'm excited to keep following. But that'll take us into our next topic, Kale. Week 5 statement wins, because the Lions are on that list. Don't know if you would put them at the top of that list, because how about we talk about them versus the Colts, who take down the Titans to tie for first place in the division despite Anthony Richardson injuring his AC joint and potentially missing a couple weeks to a month? Or how about the Jags being the Kings of London taking down the Buffalo Bills? A 2-score game pretty late into the fourth quarter. Travis Etienne beats himself in fantasy. Oh, the horror. And finally, I'm not even going to make it an honorable mention because I'm wearing the hat today. How about those Chicago Bears putting up a 40-burger of their own against Washington in Washington to get their first win of the year? Kale, I kick it to you. Who was the most impressive statement winner of Week 5?
I won't respect the Bears. I'll let you do that. I actively choose not to. I really I have no clue about that Colts game. Like I said, driving 7 hours most of the day yesterday. It was fully not on my radar at all. I knew Anthony Richardson got knocked out. Sucks to see. But we'll talk a little bit about that game later, I guess. But yeah, like just a game fully not on my radar. But I don't have enough care about Tennessee or faith in Tennessee to consider that a statement victory. It's got to be Jacksonville. I know Milano got knocked out. I know there had to be a second player that got knocked out there, but Jaguars just kind of won in a way I didn't really expect them to. Like Lawrence kind of got mangled. 5 sacks, like completed a bunch, but 350 yards, only really had a score in there, a single touchdown. ETN kind of carried this game, like fully going on like into the run game for this Jaguars team is pretty impressive. And more so just winning defensively. Like really holding Josh Allen down through the first half. Kind of let off the gas in the second half, but just a pretty impressive all-around performance by this Jacksonville defense. Wasn't the biggest game for Josh Allen, the Jaguar edge rusher, but he currently leads the league with 6 sacks, not really getting talked about. A very, very healthy performance by a bunch of other Jaguars, Tyson Campbell, Rayshawn Jenkins. I forget who had the pick in this game, and I'm trying to pull it up, but split screen kind of kills me in this, and it still doesn't give me. Oh, nope. I just have to scroll down and see Darius Williams was the pick, and a passes defense as well. Yeah, like the way we looked at this Jaguars team, this was a pass heavy Jags offense, like really pretty one-dimensional, bad defense, okay run game, but like this was a team that was kind of born and bred out of Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Engram. That was supposed to be the formula for this team. The reality is, against one of the best teams in the AFC, no guys kind of fell off there, but in one of their biggest games of the season, Jacksonville ran the ball a lot, played defensively, and got a massive, massive win against a team who last week looked like the best team in the AFC.
Yeah, I think we were all on this. I think we all said, I mean, look, on a neutral field, we might not love the Jags' chances against the Bills, but somehow London has become the ultimate home field advantage for the Jags. And I mean, the biggest key in that is they get to stay there the entire week, and they're totally adjusted by the time the Bills red eye crawls in. But I mean, leaving all that at the door, I think the fact that, I mean, until the fourth quarter, the Bills literally had 7 points. That's a huge win. I mean, you look at this box score at the end of the day and you're like, oh, wow, the Bills had a big offensive day. Almost all of that is, chase down, garbage time. Everyone's going to be on Gabe Davis in fantasy this week for his 100-yard game. I think 80 plus of that all came in the fourth quarter. And I get it. Like, the Bills are going to run up yards on you when they're coming from behind. That's going to happen. But I think the defensive performance is the number one thing I would say the Jags impressed me with this week. And, the Jags score 11 points in the first, don't score again until the fourth, and then get 14 in the fourth. That's a weird way to kind of win on offense. Like, I wouldn't typically want to do like the meat of the sandwich quarters being zeros, but if you can win that way, full power to you. And I think this was, maybe one of the better Lawrence games in a sense that, I felt more so than usual. He was the driver behind their offensive success. Like, he and his ball placement and, tight window throws, third downs, that all seemed more so Lawrence than, I mean, there were definitely a few times this was the case last year, but I felt like he was, if they don't have Trevor Lawrence specifically, as opposed to like generic quarterback A, they're not walking away with a win in that game. So from that perspective, I felt happy for Lawrence for having one of his better games. Weird way to say it, but that's how I felt.
No, he's good, dude. He's a good quarterback.
Yeah, we knew that. We knew that for a while now, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Able to spread it out. Ridley's had this weird season where like they've targeted him too much. They've like almost stared him down at points, and when you spread it around the way you do in this game with five players getting at least 5 targets each, when you spread it around like that, you can see the efficiency you get out of Ridley. 7 receptions, 122 yards. Just a really impressive all-around outing, but just more impressive the fact that, even if Lawrence can put up 300 yards, like even if he's under duress this much, like they have the ability to defer. They have the ability to like lean on a defensive game. They have the ability to like turn to the run game offensively. Like, Lawrence scrambling around a bit, like getting some wide receiver runs with Calvin Ridley. Etienne having one of the biggest games he's ever had. Yeah, just a really impressive outing by this Jaguars team. Gives me a lot more faith in where they're headed into the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'll say this about ETN. Dude's a closer. And there may not be as many closers in the NFL from a running back perspective, certainly as there were like in our youth when the LTs and even like the CJ2Ks of the world were wandering around. There were guys where you felt like if a team was up in the fourth quarter and had the ball, the LTs of the world were just going to grind you into the dirt. And I think ETN's kind of proven that he, maybe isn't the most efficient running back in the league, 100% of the time. But in the fourth quarter, he's one of those guys. And he's tough to bring down on first contact. And he had 2 fourth quarter touchdowns yesterday, including a pretty long one to ice it. And that's a valuable asset. I know we go back and forth all the time on running back value, and everyone's bemoaning the Jonathan Taylor contract before it's even started. But there's a lot of value there to having a guy like that. And he, they have other running backs in the room too that are also talented and high draft picks. So I'm excited about the Jags, man. I think they're a pretty well-rounded offense. Like we said, the defense is scary. They didn't have a sack in this game and somehow managed to pull off a win. So hat tip on that. But they'll come back to American soil this week and they'll go back to playing in the AFC South for the rest of the year. And I think they have kind of firmly reestablished themselves as the favorites after a pretty rough first 3 weeks.
Was that also, not to spend too much time on this topic, but you're wearing the hat, Jackson. Was that your statement win?
I mean, look,
you want to talk more Jags?
It's a little bit of a flippant, statement from me to call it the statement win. But look, man, that's 2 weeks in a row that Justin Fields has looked really, really good. And look, I get it. The Bears aren't a good football team. The Bears still might have the first coach fired. His only competition really for first coach fired might be his opponent in this game, Ron Rivera, and our man Bill Belichick at this point. That's the way it's looking. So I get that the Bears are not set up to compete now. But I just thought, it was a good reminder that, like, wins change really quick in this league, and everyone was down the Bears' throat at this time last week, and now they're putting up 40 points. And B, like, let's not just completely give up on Justin Fields yet. Like, there's some special plays happening in that game. The fact that basically only DJ Moore was catching passes in this game. I mean, this is ridiculous, Kale. 8 for 230. Cole Kmet gets 5 for 42, all in the first half. And the only other person to catch a pass is Robert Tonyan, who was a special teams tight end the first couple weeks. Maybe get him one more receiver and see where this thing goes. I don't know. I just think it's fun that we don't have to be like, oh, the sky is falling in Chicago for one more week. It's nice to have a little bit of a change of vibes, even if it's just because the Commanders are booty.
Yeah, your last statement's probably the best one. Yeah, I don't really care about this win. I'm pumped to see Fields cook. I'm pumped to see DJ Moore kind of run through 6 Commanders and go to town. But, like, I don't care about this win. Like, still one of the worst teams in football. Panthers, if the Bears aren't going to tank, the Panthers are going to on their behalf. Like, all offense looked better. Defense, like, I don't know. We'll see. My memory is a little hazy on this because, again, I drove up Thursday night, so was watching this game sporadically as well. But, like on paper, highlights I watched, the bits I was able to follow in the car ride up, just not, like, cool. Like, you put up 40. Like, I'm pumped for Justin Fields. I think the Bears are actively squandering a very quality quarterback. But yeah, more games like this, more power to you. Probably doesn't mean a ton this year, but it's a good groundwork to lay.
Yeah, and just to your last point too, I mean, I think that's the most upsetting part of the entire Bears situation is, I mean, look how many mid to way less than mid quarterbacks there are on the field in any given week. I mean, we're even seeing some of them carry their teams to wins. Like we saw Minshew for the second time this year, pretty much dig the team right out of a hole and get them a win. But I mean, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Kenny Pickett, all these guys that just look so miserable week to week, and some of them still even pulling out wins. And Fields has been unable to win a game literally since before last Halloween. And, his numbers are bad for the most part, especially the efficiency ones. But, like, there's so much talent there. And it's just a shame to see that kind of talent be subjected to this kind of futility. So it's nice to win one, Kevin Malone.
Yeah, you gotta put one away. Like you can't keep having circle memes of like, have you gotten a win since Halloween?
Yeah.
Have you gotten did you get a win in Kevin McCarthy's tenure as Speaker of the House? Like, you can't keep having memes like this. Like, I'm glad, honestly, like probably worse to win in this case, because that was the only thing you had going.
Hey, those memes, Jay Kuda, shout out Jay Kuda, Bears fan, so I'm sure he's not too upset to be retiring those memes. In fact, he's even been able to flip those memes on the Carolina Panthers this week since the Bears finally got their first win. So shout out Jay. Tough year for Jay, who also spent most of baseball season making those same memes about the Chicago White Sox and how much they stink. So again, Kevin Malone, it's just nice to win one. Kale, we got to flip conferences now because, I mean, we touched on the Jags. We touched on a little bit of Colts, but the AFC is in a state of being that I can't really ever remember it with, let's break it down. Let's break down the entire AFC standings. And I want to just, lay it out and see who you think is in a good spot, bad spot. And, even if you want to just say like who your AFC favorite is, I wouldn't hate that because at the top, you got the Chiefs and the Dolphins. Very different ways of getting to 4-1, but they're both at 4-1. This amalgam of teams at 3-2 is fascinating, terrifying. I don't even know what to say about it. You've got Bills, Ravens, Steelers, Jags, and Colts. All five of them, 3-2. Then the 2-2 teams, Browns, Chargers. Just Browns, Chargers. I was about to say Bengals. They're 2-3. Sitting in the middle feels appropriate for those two. And then all these 2-3 teams, I don't think you can write off yet. Bengals, Jets, Texans, Titans, especially the last two being in the AFC South. So now that I've laid out every team except for three, what do you think, bud? Like, where are you at in this conference? And if the AFC Championship's tomorrow, maybe that's the best question. Is it as easy as Chiefs Dolphins, or are there? I mean, we know the Bills are still in it, but
it's as easy as Chiefs Dolphins. Ravens would be really good if they had players catching the ball. The amount of drops, especially in that Steelers game, was pretty staggering. Said at the top of the show, Steelers only division leader with a negative point differential. Hats off to you, Matt Canada, for doing the impossible. Funny enough, they also ran the it was against the Bengals. It might actually, have they played the Bengals this year? It might actually be a clip from last year. But Stephen Ruiz of the Ringer tweeted it out. The Ben Johnson trick play that the Niners eventually ran last night, Canada ran first, which is very funny. But
how it looked way worse with the Steelers.
Yeah, because it didn't end in a touchdown. It's fine, but still happened. Chiefs, still feel a little anemic on offense, but like when you have Pat Mahomes, doesn't really matter. We'll see what this Travis Kelce non-contact turf injury is. That could hamper things.
It's the lowest grade ankle sprain that anyone's ever seen. You've never seen an ankle sprain so mild in your entire life, and that's according to all the doctors. He's fine. Trust the Chiefs.
We'll see. I mean, like those things nag. Hopefully not, but Chiefs have a good defense, okay offense. Dolphins have just a can of nitrous for an offense and a pretty porous defense. But they also get Jalen Ramsey back just in time for the playoffs. So I'm giving them, I'm still holding them pretty high. Bills look like they're actively falling apart. Not in like a super dire way, but when you like this was the first game that they felt like truly beaten in, and they lost two different defensive players on this team. Von Miller made his debut. Really didn't get a chance to see how good he looked, but like a team in total flux right now. It's tough to kind of pin him as a true defining like AFC contender. Let's go down to the 3-2s, even though I worked through two of them. Jags, just talked about them. Optimistic, still feels like they're putting things together. Colts, can't do anything without Anthony Richardson. Don't care that they're 3-2. Browns, historic start for a defense and a offense I don't really care for, but I'm glad Jerome Ford is doing well. Chargers, let's do Chargers and Bengals together because they feel like they're winning for opposite reasons. Offense for the Chargers is like best it's looked in years. EPA numbers are still high. Herbert looks good. Defense is just an absolute liability in all fronts. Bengals, on the other hand, like defense kind of put Josh Dobbs in his place a bit. Defense is sneakily. It hasn't been the best. It's been bottom 5 at points, in fact, but like it's the thing I'd kind of hang your hat on if I was the Bengals. Burrow, I'm scared of. I'm scared of him. Like this calf injury becoming an Achilles thing, and yeah, like Jamar Chase was electric, 3 touchdown performance there, but like he should be electric. He's a top 5 receiver in a offense that typically has 3 to 4 viable pass catchers that now has basically just one. And speaking of 2 and 3 teams, yeah, I'm gonna write all the 2 and 3 teams off. Titans not good. Jets. I'm gonna pitch a thing this week. The Jets are just gonna keep winning in spite of their quarterback, and I think 2023 Wilson's better than 2022 or 2021 Wilson. But like maybe it'll help them sneak a wild card spot, but I just don't know how much it matters. And
I think all the 2 and 3 teams are very much on the table for wild card spots. I think we might even have an 8-9.
Like I just like they're on the table for wild card spots. I just don't care that. I don't care. Like, like if they're on the table for wild card spots, like I don't think any of them like pull major upsets. I don't think any like I think the skill gap in this conference is pretty staggering. Honestly, at the like I'd say at the 3-2, like Jaguars and up for the most part. It shuffles obviously because like I want to throw the Browns and Chargers in there. I want to throw the Steelers out of there and the Colts for that matter out of there. But like there's like 7 good teams in this conference that can win games, and we got some spunky teams in there, but none of them are playoff threats to me. Like legitimately major upset sort of playoff threats.
If you're the Chiefs, who are you least happy about seeing walk into Arrowhead in January? Chargers, Jets, Bengals.
I was going to say Browns, so thank you for not giving me that option.
Browns are going to get clapped this week, and we might feel differently about them because they're playing the Niners. So we'll see how that impacts how you feel
I'd like to see how that defense holds up. I'm very intrigued by that matchup. Yeah, you're right that the other side of the ball is probably going to dictate that game, but I really just want to see how well the Browns defense holds up against a legit juggernaut offense. But of the 3 you gave me, like don't make me say the Jets.
I'm not making you do anything. That's on you.
Yeah, like of the like just because we've seen it be the closest thus far. On paper, fully healthy. The Bengals and the Chiefs, or the Bengals and the Chargers are probably the only like both those teams can probably outgun the like have the ability to stay on pace with the Chiefs offense. But neither of them have a defense to really slow them down. The Jets kind of are the wild card in that they have the defense to slow the Chiefs down. We've seen that firsthand, but the Jets also have this uncanny ability to kind of like go all or nothing and like generate some crazy explosives. The only thing that makes me wary is the fact that the Jets kind of got their best game ever out of Zach Wilson, and it didn't really matter. So
until he threw a third
real answer, none of them
interception at the end.
Yeah, real answer, none of them.
Fair enough. Like, I want to keep an eye on the Bengals because, like, yes, you're very, very worried about Joe Burrow, but you still have to kind of say yesterday was a step in the right direction. I get that the Cardinals are, as much as they are frisky, they are still bad. And I get that of their 34 points, it's a little bit skewed because there was a, walk-in pick six included in there. But, we were saying they might lose that game and their season will be over. And when you just still have all the names that still in the building, like, I just want to keep an eye on it. And they did it without T. Higgins, who presumably should be back next week. So we were on the point. We were on the brink of being ready to write off the Bengals at some point in the next couple weeks, and I don't think we can do that yet. So just keeping tabs there, especially, they could still win that division, Kale. What the hell? Like, I know we have a head scratcher dedicated to it later, but the Ravens were supposed to be in that top tier. We were supposed to be saying the Ravens would challenge the Chiefs, the Dolphins, the Bills, all of them, and they couldn't get out of their own way yesterday. It was probably, I would say, the worst loss of the day.
No, it's not Lamar's fault.
It's not Lamar's fault at all. Totally agree.
It's not Lamar's fault. He is good at football, and it's everyone else's fault. He should be winning MVP, and he's not, and I don't know why.
Well, since he teed it up like that, who is winning MVP? That's how I'm going to put it to you, because I don't think we have a front runner yet.
Do you want my honest answer?
I want you to assess it predictively, not like, oh, we're voting today, right? Who's going to win?
Jackson, you don't want me to say it. You don't want me to say it. You know who I'm gonna say. You don't want me to say it.
I don't know who
because he's not that good. He's got a lot of help.
Are you gonna say Tua or Brock Purdy?
Brock Purdy. It's Brock Purdy. It's Brock Purdy. Because it's just quarterback on best team, and he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo, so it has to be the quarterback, right? He's never lost a game in the regular season. He's never lost a game that he's finished. I'll put it that way. Yeah, it's like Tua's up there. Do you want to give one to Jason Kelce for breaking short yard runs?
I wouldn't hate that.
Even
though Jason Kelce has gone on record and said center is the easiest offensive line position, but yeah, let's make a center NFL MVP. That would be the perfect fitting end to this year, honestly.
I'm more just saying as the progenitor and ball carrier of the brotherly shove / tush push.
I agree. Also, Jalen Hurts, same thing. The reason that everyone else is getting hurt trying to run the tush push is because their quarterback doesn't squat 600 pounds. And I would almost give the same way that you're giving it to Kelce, I'd almost give it to Hurts for the same reason, because they really have broken the code on 1 yard plays.
Yeah. Beyond that, I don't know. Mahomes is probably up there. Stafford's sneaky. I'd throw Stafford in that mix.
I'd throw Goff in that mix if you're going to throw Stafford
as well. Just as dark horse guys that could get a vote. But yeah, it feels like Brock Purdy's to lose right now, which is a freaking insane thing to say. It really does.
What would CMC have to do to take it from Brock Purdy? I get that running backs don't win awards anymore, but it feels like the type of year where it could plausibly happen if CMC puts up.
I think straight up like a 1,200. You would need 1,200 and a combined 18 touchdowns, 20 touchdowns. You'd have to put up
he's on pace for more than that right now.
Unfathomable numbers. And then you're golden. But as of right now, I don't I don't know how they give it to a non-quarterback when like Brock is the one kind of commanding change, if that makes sense. Like he's the one thing that's changed about this offense. Like they had CMC last year and they went from like a -4 DVOA or a -2 DVOA to like a 24 DVOA on like without and with Christian McCaffrey splits. But Purdy himself is just like it's like he is tangibly better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's tangibly better than like any quarterback that the Niners have had in recent memory. But he's also like not that good, and like is also a product of a system that is making him look great. Like Collinsworth on the broadcast is like, yeah, like Purdy doesn't want this 4-yard out. He wants this he wants his flag route deep, like, and he's going to check down to his guy Juwan Jennings, and make sure he's looking deep first. And like Juwan Jennings is the most open receiver I've ever seen.
That's open,
like there's a yeah, it's so like Shanahan. Like what do you think the odds are that? I don't know how many times this has happened, but what do you think the odds are that the Niners sweep MVP Coach of the Year? Because I feel like one precludes the other. Namely, a Coach of the Year precludes Brock Purdy from winning MVP, but I don't think it precludes McCaffrey from winning MVP, let's say.
Not if they go undefeated. I mean, I don't think they will, right? But at 2007 Pats, there's an MVP Coach of the Year for you. So if they're just that much more dominant than everyone else, even if they go 16-1, I think that's.
I don't think the defense. Let's walk through. I know, dude. It's so funny that we were like, yeah, hard out, and now we're gonna go deep on this, but it's so like I don't know if they have the defense to do a 17-0 run. 17-0 is a crazy run. You have to be pretty perfect for that. I understand they have guys at every level, and they've got probably like people who have either already or will win all pros at every level of their defense. But I just like it's not like you've got 5 Hall of Famers on that defense. You don't have offenses are too good for defense to be the sole dictator here. The offense for the Niners can kind of roll through anybody, and they have the sort of multiplicity to do whatever they want. But I don't think they're not holistically that head and shoulders above everyone to go 17-0.
Yeah, I'm more so. Can they go 16-1? That's my question, and I think they plausibly can. Because, yeah, I mean, look, 17-0 is just absurd, especially in today's NFL. Everyone has an off night. But, okay, so they start this stretch of Seahawks, Eagles, Seahawks again, Cardinals, and then Ravens, Commanders, Rams to finish the season. Really, it's just like, you play that Sunday night Seahawks and then the Eagles. So that coupled with their finishing schedule, I don't think they're going undefeated through that whole stretch. So then the question really becomes, can they win their next 5 games to get to 10-0? And I think they can. We'll see, but they're at the Browns, they're at the Vikings, they're home for the Bengals, they're at the Jags, and then they're home for the Bucks. You chalk up like 3 of those as automatic wins, I think, and then, Browns and Bengals and, who else? But I think they're winning all 5 of those games, in which case I would predict them to go 16-1.
I'd sneaky, I don't know, that Cardinals game was like 21-16 into the 4th quarter. Like, Dobbs is scrappy. Maybe
is Dobbs even going to be their quarterback by then?
I was about to say, like, maybe they have Kyler back. That could be a difference maker there. If they're kind of like, it feels like they're already out of like super contention for Caleb Williams, despite the fact that that's what we thought their whole season was going to be dedicated to.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm very interested in this road Cleveland game next week. I'm super interested in how the stretch of double Seahawks Eagles goes, especially with both those games going opposite coasts, them having to go at Seattle, at Philly, back to San Francisco in 3 weeks. One of those,
That's a
oh no,
mini
one of
bye.
those is a mini buy. One of those is a mini buy.
Because the Seahawks game is Thanksgiving. So
Yeah.
you've got the mini bye between Seahawks and Eagles.
But starting that short week, 4 days in between Tampa Bay, at least that's a home game. But 4 days in between Tampa Bay and at Seattle is pretty tough.
Yeah, I just feel like the Niners always beat the Seahawks in the Kyle Shanahan era. I mean, maybe there's evidence to the contrary, but
They rolled them last year with Gino in both games.
And it was like, I don't remember which of the Seahawks I was starting in fantasy that week, but I like needed 10 points. And the minute that game started, the Niners were just all over him. And I was like, oh yeah, they're not getting 10 points. Not a chance. So very distinct memories of the Niners dominating the Seahawks. And speaking of dominance, let's move on to game balls for the week. And let's just start with as pure dominance as there is. You touched on it a little bit earlier, Jamar Chase. Cal, the Bengals needed a win in the worst way. And with no T. Higgins, with a frisky Cardinals team, as we've established, not good, but definitely frisky, and with Joe Burrow on one leg, look, Jamar was the reason they won this game, and 15 catches, easy new career high, 192 yards, second most of any game in his career, 3 touchdowns, couple of them on deep balls, all 3 nasty catches. I think my favorite image from this game was him handing his 3rd touchdown to his dad, who already had another touchdown game ball in his arm. Just like, yep, no, just keep him coming, man. Like that. He's just so good. And I think we almost, not that we forgot how good he is, but when you have a couple down weeks to begin the year, when other guys like Tyreek and, Achan and everyone's going nuts, it's like, Jamar Chase is still around, but he reestablished himself like, no, I'm still here. I'm still in this conversation for best skill players in the league. So that was encouraging to see, and that's part of why I'm not writing off the Bengals yet.
I haven't fully written them off, but it's just I don't know how much they can do. Like they've got a lot of catch up to do, and I know the Bengals have done the whole 0-2 start and made the playoffs. They did that last year, but it's a tougher uphill battle. I guess it's a little easier knowing that the rest of the AFC has a lot of flaws. At least every team has one weakness, but yeah, it was a pretty impressive get right game. The fact they were able to function pretty perfectly out of a clean pocket, the fact that they were just like running 99% shotgun the way they have, the fact that Burrow was able to get the ball off quick in an efficient manner, and then trying to maximize what they're doing with Chase. The fact that Chase, his 3 touchdown game, welcome back to him. We'll see where they go. It'll be pretty interesting to see how their schedule shakes out, because it's pretty tough at this point. I was almost like, if they lost this game, it's getting like, oh, they should just say screw it and bottom out, pick up Marvin and ball out Jamar Chase, Marvin Harrison Jr. next year. But dude, they've got Seattle at San Fran, hosting Buffalo, a bye week before that San Fran game, but a tough next 3 coming up. And if you really want to extend further out, home game against a very scrappy Houston team, and then go into Baltimore. Those are tough games. They've got work cut out for them.
They do.
And that's still leaving out a Chiefs game at Arrowhead on New Year's Eve down the road. Like, I've got a lot going on.
I agree, but it felt like at the start of the year we were saying 12 or 13 games wins this division, and now I feel like it's down to 10, maybe 11 at most, with the way the Ravens just don't have receivers. So all the more reason to keep them around. Because, and again, like you get to the postseason, and if Burrow's fully himself, like they're not a team anyone wants to face. So keeping him on the back burner, and not to even make this all about the Bengals, it's just about Chase because he was the best player on any field yesterday, pretty much best skill player. Your game ball.
I kind of want to do two. Told you about one before the show, and that's George Kittle. 3 touchdown game there, first of his career.
The tight end Randy Moss stat line. Not as many yards, but 3 catches, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, he was pretty damn good. Just like, again, the multiplicity of this offense, like the fact that I think Brandon Ayuk has only caught first downs or touchdowns this year. Like the fact that he's now just a top 10 guy is crazy. The fact that Debo's now like the 4th option on this team, nuts. We already talked about McCaffrey and how good he's been.
How about Kyle Juszczyk? Also,
yeah, they're still running fullbacks and they're still elite. It's kind of crazy. I did want to throw a laces ball or like a game laces. The Lions tight end Sam Laporta has been damn good. Lions just tweeted out Laporta is the 2nd tight end in NFL history with 35 plus receiving yards in each of his first 5 games. He is a legitimate passing threat for this Lions team as they kind of cycle through different guys. But it's been impressive to see the like Dan Campbell taking under the wing of Laporta as a former NFL tight end. It's been pretty impressive to see him kind of make it work for Laporta. But I will also say Laporta right now is a hair shy of being the only player outside Mike Ditka to catch for 1,000 receiving yards in their rookie season. He's sitting at 90. Like his pace right now would put him at 982.6. He just needs like a bit. Like he's put up his worst game this season. He's coming off is, I guess this game was his 2nd worst by yardage, but he also had 2 touchdowns. His worst game is the Kansas City game. He still got 5 receptions for 39 yards. So he's getting the workload. He's getting reps. It's just a matter of like he could get one big breakout game. And he's had some long plays. He's had a 45, a 35, a 31. Like he's hitting guys. Like he's getting in stride. If he breaks off a couple in one game, if he gets some extra volume, who knows? Could be up there.
Oh, for real. Funniest thing about all this is the Lions traded away their tight end last year for a 2nd-round pick and ended up taking this guy with a different team's 2nd-round pick. So just a perfect what goes around comes around. In that NFL draft analysis on NFL.com, it says Laporta could be the second best tight end receiving threat this year behind Dalton Kincaid. Like it was just a given that Kincaid would pop ahead of him. That hasn't happened yet. Guess who has popped? Sam Laporta. And the Lions haven't played from behind yet, really. So he could be in line for some huge games if they ever end up in a shootout or playing from behind. So lots to like there. So that's your official game ball, though, is Kittle for record-keeping purposes?
Yes.
Fair enough. All right. Hard to dispute that. Defensively, I'll let you go first this time.
There's a man who plays like he's shot out of a cannon every snap of every game. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it misses. In week 5, it hit. Give my game ball to Quincy Williams, who just felt like he was absolutely everywhere in this Jets-Broncos game. It's the thinnest linebacker group in football, but also like maybe the best linebacker duo outside of Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. But Quincy Williams, couple sacks, 3 quarterback hits, a tackle for loss, and a crucial game-winning forced fumble or strip of Russell Wilson to have God, I scrolled past the Jets fumble thing because this game was so sloppy. There are 7 different Jets in the New York fumbles category between lost and recovered. I think it was it was Bryce Hall who recovered the fumble, returned it 30-something yards for a game-winning touchdown. But yeah, just hats off to Quincy. What an absolute game. He's been playing pretty fantastically through this first 5 games.
Yeah, I mean, we said it already. This team is going to succeed because of the defense, and I mean, we're barely even talking about defending Rookie of the Year Sauce Gardner to this point in the year, but he's still kicking around. You've got Quinnen Williams still kicking around. The unfortunate thing is the Jets were, we were kind of talking about them as having a stacked line on both sides. I mean, you were concerned at the start of the year, I guess, about the Jets O-line, but I think a lot of their
one thing that I thought would sink them. Yeah.
A lot of their success was going to be determined up front, and while the defense still is fully intact, the offensive line is just in tatters at this point. And Elijah Vera Tucker might have had an Achilles tear yesterday, which would be a total disaster. But enough negativity, like that defense balls, and I think we saw it. It's Russell Wilson, I get it, but it was on display for much of yesterday, and that's going to be the determining factor in their success. But Kale, you talked about guys that get shot out of cannons. That's Fred Warner. That's his entire existence, is being the 6'3", super fast, super physical guy. And yesterday, he pretty much broke the ESPN box score because, yes, he led the team with 8 tackles. Yes, he had a sack. Yes, he had another tackle for loss. Yes, he had a forced fumble. And he also had an interception. That doesn't all fit on one line of an ESPN post-game box score. You have to then scroll down to the interceptions category to find all of the categories that Fred Warner ticked off last night. So, look, there's a lot of guys that won the Niners that game, but I feel like, on the grand stage of Sunday Night Football, he might have shined the brightest. He was electric.
I think it's a different kind of shot out of a cannon. With Quincy, he is an elite downfield, like getting downhill kind of player, just sprinting down. And that's for better or for worse. Like, he can miss plays, he can blow a guy up, or he can totally miss a tackle and lead to a pretty large breakout. Fred Warner is just like, you turn all the sliders in Madden up to 99 and let him just stand in the middle of the field. Fred Warner stayed stride for stride with Brandon Cooks in pass coverage, picking him up on a vertical route. One of the most impressive things I've ever seen a linebacker do on kind of a non-play. I think he was in pass coverage there, or as in Brandon Cooks did get targeted there, but he can do anything.
Is he the best athlete in the NFL, do you think? Just pure I'll put it to you like this. Is he the closest thing the NFL has to Ohtani right now in terms of all-around ability?
If you're gonna put it like that, yeah, because I was going to, if you were gonna say best athlete, I was gonna throw in the caveat of the Dolphins have the top 5, and then top 7 of 8 or 6 of 8 fastest ball carriers by next gen stats. But
Ohtani,
if you're gonna put it the Ohtani way of he can do pass coverage, he can do run stopping, he can he can pass rush, he can do anything. It's probably Fred Warner.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I came up with the question. So fair play to Fred. He's incredible. Special teams. Give it to me.
I don't know.
Favorite part of the show every week.
Yeah, it's getting me to do a special teams game ball in a given week is its own problem. getting me to do a special teams game ball in a week where I barely watched football and watched more football on Monday morning than on Sunday is its own problem for me. I went with Matt Gay by just box surfing alone or box score surfing alone. 3 field goals, not many long ones, 2 extra points, but nearly outscored the Tennessee Titans and was kind of the reason that they stayed afloat after Anthony Richardson left the game. The one like big touchdown drive they had was, I guess they had one at the they had a long one at the end of the second half, but if you leave that one out, they win with Anthony Richardson's touchdown drive with the Zach Moss touchdown on top of Matt Gay's 11 points, and that's all you need.
Basically, there's a lot to break down from that Colts game that, we don't really have the time or space to. We still have a little bit to talk about from that game, teaser alert, but it was such a weird formula. The Matt Gay scoring all their points. If it wasn't Matt Gay, it was Zach Moss, despite all the hoopla being around Jonathan Taylor coming back. It's like, oh, shoot, Zach Moss has 2 touchdowns and almost 200 yards. Nobody started him this week in fantasy. Really interesting game that I would dedicate more time to if A, it wasn't a little bit irrelevant in the grand scheme of the league, and B, if Kale hadn't been in Vermont yesterday. So no need to spend more time on it, but Matt Gay game ball is very fair considering I think this was one of the worst special teams weeks of the year. And most of it can be encapsulated in that game you were just talking about, Jets-Broncos, which was a nearly unmitigated disaster. Steelers-Ravens, also an unmitigated disaster from a special teams perspective. You had Oshevsky fumbling the punt late in the fourth that should have led to a game-winning touchdown for the Ravens. Spoiler alert, didn't. But I'll go the other way with it and say that my special teams game ball for the week goes to Miles Killebrew, Steelers backup safety, career special teamer, one of our favorite types of guys. Blocks a Ravens punt for a safety, very nearly recovered by a teammate for a touchdown. It was like, elbow on the chalk in the back of the end zone type deal. But Steelers had only scored 3 points to that point. And if they don't get the blocked punt, who's to say they would have ever crossed midfield again with the way that Pickett Canada offense was starting to look. So got to give a special shout out to Killebrew. He's the type of guy we love on this program. Career special teamer, 8th year guy. Makes a play that helps his team win a game. Big stuff.
Big stuff indeed. Again, man, I wish I watched football Sunday to have.
You can't do it every week, man. You need a detox sometimes.
Yeah, a detox helps, but yeah, this was just a game very much decided by the 7/8, very much decided by the bits of the game that matter, and arguably any of the bad plays any of the special teams plays that helped decide games were bad plays and mistakes by the special teams more than like gutsy interference. Like I'm not giving a special teams game ball to the Broncos defender that stood in front of Xavier Gipson to like force a fumble because Gipson didn't step into the ball and draw a fair catch interference. Like, no, that was just a muffed punt. I'm not giving a game ball for that.
Straight up. Yeah. Horrible special teams day. Like the worst that we've seen this year and maybe in our show's history. But glad we could at least find somebody to give a game ball to. Uniforms? There was a lot to like yesterday. That might be the one thing we could say there was a lot to like about.
How about you start?
Well, I don't know. I want you to give your game ball first so I can know which ones to shout out. That's the only reason. Because I have some that just need to be shouted out that if you're going to take one, but otherwise I'm going to have to touch on them all.
I am rapid fire going through just dude a lot. Oh my dude, this is the thing that's pissing me off. Jackson, there were so many Kale uniform games in this. I just clicked on 3. Titans, Colts, Texans, Falcons.
That's a weird one.
Texans, Falcons. I just liked all the red. Just the black versus white, all black versus all white, almost exclusively red accents. The navy of the Texans is dark enough where it's kind of close to the Falcons black.
Yeah, I had a problem telling which team was which when Red Zone would cut back to that game yesterday.
Too much symmetry, and I love it. I'd probably give it the cleanest of the bunch of the Kale. Like this just melts into my eyes. Well, Lions Panthers. Lions Panthers was good. Lot of light blues in the mix there.
Carolina versus Honolulu blue.
Yes.
That's a very respectable pick.
Yeah, listen, I again was not a visual week for me. But I don't know. I'm not throwing one to like the clash of Dolphins Giants. Like I'm not throwing one to whatever was on the field in Saints Pats. Like,
well, the Pats are just refusing to wear silver pants, and I think that's the reason they're also refusing to score points.
Pats are refusing to be a football team,
basically. I look. We should spend more time on the Pats this week because there's all these existential questions to ask, but there's too many other things to talk about. They stink. Like what else?
We don't need to talk about the Pats.
Yeah,
we can. We'll talk about them. We'll talk about them in April when we do our draft preview, and they're picking Jake May 3rd overall, or Drake May.
Or Jake May.
I'm tired.
Bill could find a guy named
Jake May.
Bill could find a guy named Jake May and take him 3rd overall. That's very possible. So I wanted to like be a sicko and give mine to Titans Colts, but like I can't do that when we have Niners Cowboys to talk about.
I wanted to leave that for you. I wanted to just give you like by far the best game of the week.
Yeah, like that's it. So I'm gonna go with that because that's like that works in 1960, that works in 1985, and that works today. So that's the one. But like, yes, I want to give a special shout out to Titans Colts because the Titans road uniforms have been really bad in this new uniform era of theirs when they did the redesign and went to the blue helmets. And I think yesterday was my favorite iteration of it. It was the first time I can remember that they wore the light blue socks instead of either navy or white, which all white is the worst look they have. But I was like, I'm into this because the Colts are rocking the royal blue and the light blue was a nice little mini clash against it. And it was just trying something new, which the NFL is hard to change a uniform template. You have to wait 5 years to even make any changes. So it was nice to see like a different visual identity from the Titans than we usually see. And I think it worked. And I'd like to see them try it again. Maybe they won't because they lost, but try it back out there, Titans.
Two of the 3 worst uniforms in football have kind of made slight comebacks to being presentable. And that's Titans and Arizona.
Well, Arizona, I mean, they finally did do the redesign, and I think that's been a win so far. So you got to give them credit for sure. The All Blacks yesterday were decent. I don't hate those. They're okay.
Red and orange is a tough combo to do as like a game ball, but like they didn't look bad.
Yeah. The uniform game was not good, and I always think red versus orange gives you that, but the uniforms are solid. I'll give them a B. And that'll lead us into head scratchers where everyone is getting a grade significantly lower than B. Kale, you want to kick us off this week, or do you want to pass it to me?
No, I'm kicking it off because it's not in the NFL.
I think I know where you're going with this because I had the same one written down as if he doesn't talk about it, then I just have to. So take it away.
Let's do it. Let's talk about the University of Miami.
Coral Gables.
In a just such a funny game. Where to begin? Miami's got the ball. Get the ball back. 5.5 minutes left in in regulation, fourth quarter. Miami's up 3, and they are doing a pretty fantastic job of just marching the ball down the field, chewing clock, burning 2 of Georgia's timeouts, and getting the clock down to 40 seconds. Jackson, how long is a play clock? How long does it take to run a game out?
So you're telling me there were 40 seconds left and a play clock is 40 seconds long.
Yeah, Jackson. And they snapped the ball.
And you're telling me that Georgia Tech was out of timeouts, Kale. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm telling you they're out of timeouts. I'm telling you Miami's got a timeout in their pocket. I'm telling you that it's 3rd and 10.
Okay, I think I have this.
It's not fourth down where they've got to run a play. It's 3rd down, and they're within the range where a kneel down ends the game.
So they took a knee. Do I pass the test? They took a knee.
No.
Okay, so they didn't take a knee. Surely they just held on to the football and won the game still because nothing else never happened. What?
Jackson, Donald Chaney Jr. fumbles the ball on the Georgia Tech 26.
How did this happen?
The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets recover the football, and in 4 plays.
But you said they were on the 26, so surely they at least shut it down on defense.
Haynes King hits Malik Rutherford for a 30-yard game. An incomplete
pass. Hail Mary territory. They couldn't have possibly converted the Hail Mary, though.
And with 1 second left, they convert the Hail Mary.
No.
They convert for 44 yards and a touchdown.
But it was like a contested catch, right? Like it hit off 5 guys' hands in midair and fell
into heads. It was clean as a whistle. It was about as textbook as you can get. It's exactly how you draw it up. Now they fail the 2-point conversion. Miami gets the ball back.
They kicked it out of bounds. Miami had a chance.
Tyler Van Dyke completes it to Jacoby George for 4 yards. And Jacoby George fumbles. just insult to injury there.
Yeah.
Blown game. Try to get it back. Botched the end of the game. And Jackson, this will fully take him out of rankings. This will fully take him out of any sort of hopes.
That should take you out of a job, just straight up. I'm sorry. That's a fireable offense.
USA, this is cause. This is firing with cause. It's about as bad as you get. USA Today just published their list of how much it would cost teams to fire their head coach. And I don't know where Mario Cristobal falls, but by the time you give your game ball, I will have it. And I will tell you that it's probably not enough money.
Yeah. First of all, Cristobal did basically this same thing against Stanford a few years ago and lost in overtime. So shout out for consistency, I guess. What is the single easiest decision as a head coach in football? It is taking a knee when the game is over. I don't know what else to say. I feel like he was just trying to get in this section of the pod this week, and there's no other thing to do but to put him first. So sorry to break the NFL streak on head scratchers for the year and not do the typical, college is our honorable mention because we're an NFL pod. Sometimes you just have to. And I'm certain that Cristobal will be nominated for Head Scratcher of the Year as well. Congratulations on a groundbreaking decision in this podcast's history. But I will kick it over to the NFL side as well. And Kale, what the hell was going on with the Ravens receivers yesterday? I counted. So officially there were 6 drops. That's just the official number, and drops are kind of a wonky stat. And they had 3 drops the entire season coming into yesterday as a team. Yesterday, they officially had 6. 2 of them were in the end zone on the same drive. One of them was Nelson Aguilar dropping a breakaway touchdown where nobody was within 10 yards of him. Another couple that don't count were, okay, so Zay Flowers has another deep ball that's right to him, and he just falls down, and the ball basically lands on his face mask. You had an end game scenario where, I mean, look, this is on Lamar, terrible throw, but they threw a goal line fade to Odell Beckham Jr., who just gets absolutely bodied, looks nothing like a guy who once made the best catch that we've maybe ever seen in NFL history. And it was like such a meek little attempt at the ball that I didn't realize it was Odell Beckham. My brain hasn't fully registered that Odell Beckham is wearing number 3 for the Ravens. I thought it was Devin Brochet. Our buddy, Tom Strachan from formerly Football Outsiders, fantasy writer, tweeted out that he was missing the days of Prochet and Sammy Watkins yesterday. That's how bad it's gotten for the Ravens at the wide receiver position. Look, he spent a first-round pick on Zay Flowers. He's had some good games. Yesterday was by far his worst. Mark Andrews is supposed to be like your safety valve. He had a terrible game yesterday. OBJ milk carton. Rashad Bateman like double milk carton, and they should have won that game 28-7, and instead they lose it, and now they're not even in first place anymore, and we have to lament the ugliest skill position group performance in the league in years. I'm gonna say it was awful.
It's pretty gross, pretty bad. This should be an elite top of the AFC contender playoff picture. They're just not, and I don't really get it. I don't totally think it's the fault of Todd Monken. I definitely don't think it's the fault of Lamar Jackson. But this was supposed to be the talent influx, and they just didn't get it. It's not totally panning out right now. It's a little frustrating.
Yeah, it's really bad. We already played this game earlier this week with a different team. Would you trade the Patriots receivers for the Ravens receivers straight up as a skill group if you're the Pats front office right now?
Yeah. Yeah, I would. What kind of question is that, Jack? I'd play J.K. Dobbins on his torn Achilles right now over what Ramondre Stevenson's doing right now. And I like Ramondre. It's just, dude, what's going on? It's got to be the worst skill position group of football. It's got to be the worst. It's one of the worst quarterback situations. I know that. I don't really know Bill O'Brien's job right now. I kind of want to, if I'm not pitching like the Jets can, I'm sure Schatz is going to do Pat stuff, but the Pats Saints loss is worse than the Pats Dallas loss. And the Pats Dallas loss is the worst loss by DVOA or the biggest loss by marginal points in the history of Belichick's Patriots tenure. And this is the first time they've been shut out since 2016. And it's definitely worse.
Giants? You traded the Patriots guys for the Giants?
At that point, I'd rather have just Kendrick Bourne. And that's the only reason I'm stopping it. He hasn't been good. I just like him. I'd trade him for the Bears. I'd trade him for the Jets. I'd trade him for the I think like the two teams I wouldn't are the Giants and Panthers. And even like the Panthers, like when Andy Dalton's in, Adam Thielen looks awesome. Yeah. Like Adam Thielen looks like a legit football player again.
Yeah, Miles Sanders is done, which is sad to say as somebody who drafted a lot of Miles Sanders this year in kind of mid rounds, trying to wait on running backs. So the Panthers are in a pretty bad spot, but so are the Pats. So fully justifiable. And maybe someday we will have a full worst skill position rankings, because I think the Patriots would be, if not number one, then definitely number two right now. So it's gotten really bad, and that's kind of a fitting end to head scratchers that weren't even officially slated to include the Pats, but that was the section of the pod they had to go in.
We can't help it. It's kind of gross. Yeah. We kind of have a problem.
It's ugly. It's really, really ugly. Mac Jones is bad, as it turns out, but also his
Who the
camp
fuck
is also
Justin Fields
sort of right.
no matter what was right the entire time.
Yeah. He's bad, but also everyone around him is bad. So his camp is right in saying good cooks can't make good food with garbage. But Mac Jones is taking garbage and turning it into toxic waste.
Dude, what was the Juju deal? Why do we do that? Why do they do that? Why I shouldn't say we. Why do they do that?
What
Why
were
do
the
they do that if
t-shirts?
Jacoby Myers was the exact same amount of money and he's the only offensive success story you've had in the last half decade? What's going on?
What were the
Who's this
t-shirts?
for?
Like, no help is coming, or this is all we got.
That's it. Nobody is coming to help us. Is the funniest fucking thing I've ever heard put. Hey, dude,
Don't lose that.
It's worse than like burying the football as a corny move. It's one of the funniest things I've ever heard a team do.
I think
And Belichick's still being like
this.
sheepishly coy about like, well, like we've been pretty good the last 20 years, and he's talking about drafting like Matt Light and Mike Vrabel. Like, dude, get over it. Like, that was then, this is now. Like, I read that book in 7th grade. Like, come on. Like, live in the moment, brother. This is frustrating.
It is. Yeah, I don't want to lose sight of those t-shirts for TMB year-end awards. So let's bookmark that and potentially design a category entirely around those t-shirts if we need to. Worst omen or something of that.
Best apparel. Funniest apparel.
Yeah.
Funniest merch.
Yeah. Most ironic TMB potential merch purchase, and we'll name it after Nolan's Jags jacket. That'll take us to Monday Night Football, I think. And don't have to watch the Giants on Monday Night Football this week. So things are already looking up. Sad news, we do have to watch a team coached by Josh McDaniels. So bookmark that. What are you most excited about for this one, Kale? Is it the Davante Adams revenge game? Is it let's find out if the Packers have any skill position players that can score 10 fantasy points? Talk me through it.
Sorry, I'm waiting through bouts of my dog barking at another dog that he sees across the way. I'm most excited to see Christian Watson in a functional offense. I'm most excited to see the eventual Davante Adams trade rumors continue to mount. And I'm most excited to see what the Manning cast has in store, because I don't really know what else to really care about for this game. This is a Packers team that I like, but recognize the limitations of. I'd love to see the defense play a little better. I'd love to see them kind of take it to a McDaniels offense, especially when it really hasn't been that good. But this was a weird Raiders team, and we'll kind of see how things go.
Yeah, I'll just add briefly to your list as a Bay Area native and A's shouldn't move to Vegas. Die Hard will stay on that hill for the next 50 years plus of my lifetime. I'm excited to see just how many Packers fans they can pack into that stadium tonight. Hope it's 95% Packers fans. I hope that on third downs, Jimmy Garoppolo is like calling timeouts and going over to the sideline, because I think that's fully going to be a piece of the puzzle here. And I hope that at some point Davante Adams like mosses Jair Alexander, because there have been a lot of pieces written about the two of them and how they helped each other cut their teeth in practice as future All-Pros 4 or 5 years ago. So that would be very fun. But in spite of the fact that I think Davante Adams is the best player on the field, I think the Packers will win the football game. And if not, they will be in a bad spot because the Raiders are one of the 5 worst teams.
5 worst is tough. It's tough. It's tough but true. It's crazy. It's good. It's nuts to think that the 2022 or the reigning rushing leader and the number 1 to 2 receiver in football are wasted on the worst team or one of the worst teams in the league. It's frustrating.
Pretty bad. And one of the better edge rushers as well. Just all going to waste. Here's the problem, Gail. That's their roster, is those 3 guys. Other than that, they pretty much don't have NFL caliber players. That will come back to bite you throughout the course of the football season.
Just want to throw in a quick thing that broke during our pod. Not really broke, but Rex Ryan. If Mac Jones was in San Francisco, he would be playing like Brock Purdy. Yeah, that's the point. That's kind of the whole thing with the offense, is that quarterback doesn't really matter, and they have to be pretty limited in what they do. Sorry, I just had to throw that in.
I mean, he's not wrong. That doesn't make Mac Jones good, sadly.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make Brock Purdy good either.
That's probably the most if it's and buts statement I've ever heard in my entire life is, if this guy who's on a terrible offense moved to the best offense we've potentially ever seen, he might get good production. Huh.
We could do, I wish the takeaway was still a thing. Sorry, I'm just scrolling this. ESPN Greeny. Mike Greenberg just said Russell Wilson looks the worst I've ever seen him look. He's playing well.
Yeah,
he's playing well. He's like 15th, like as a quarterback, but like he's above average. He's doing good. It's not
tell him to go play linebacker. Maybe then he could help make a difference for this Broncos team.
Sorry, we can't do. Maybe we could bring back take audits. Maybe we could do some Monday morning recordings and scour the internet for the hottest from the last 18 hours of football. It could be an idea. All right, let's
cheap seats.
Let's do cheap seats. Jackson, there's only 3 options this week.
Well,
you want me to toss it to you because I'd love your opinion.
I actually think we switch it up for cheap seats this week. It's not cheap seats anymore. It's mid seats. Because here's the thing, Kale. Lately, every cheap seats has just been, do you want to go to Jacksonville or do you want to go to Atlanta or do you want to watch the Cardinals play?
Yeah.
So rather than answer the same question for the 3rd or 4th week in a row, I think it's mid seats this week. It's let's go to the $75 to $100 range.
Yeah.
And see what we can glean from that. So I'm going to toss it to you, actually, since this was my sterling idea here. And I'm going to give you 3 options, as is our typical play. First off, for the price of $78, Baltimore at Tennessee in London. I'm giving you a London game this week. So that's your trip across the pond. We'll say the trip is comped. You don't have to worry about airfare. Just fork over your $78. Go visit Piccadilly Circus, the works, and go watch Lamar and Ryan Tannehill do battle. Number 2, for $94, a little more elevated, but boy, is this a game I know you're excited about. San Francisco at Cleveland. The only downside, you have to go to Cleveland Browns Stadium, and you have to pay money to a franchise that supports Deshaun Watson. So those are your only 2 negatives there. Should be a very good football game. And finally, only one more dollar, $95. Boy, this is an interesting one to include into this category. It's New Orleans at Houston. It's Kale's preseason sicko team and Kale's quarter season sicko team. So I might have an inclination as to where you're leaning here, but I'm giving you all 3 options. What is your take on mid seats this week?
Best games probably Cleveland, San Francisco, but dude, I love London. I love London so much. I'm just gonna go to the Anchor, cross the River Thames next to the Globe Theater, pound some ass ball cider. I wish I wasn't on 75 hard so I could actually drink ass ball cider. But this is a hypothetical world where I'm not and can do whatever I please because the flight's comped, and I can spend my money on anything at this point. I'm doing laps around Hyde Park. I'm crushing it. I'm gonna take pictures in a phone booth, and I'm gonna watch the Ravens. Hopefully dismantle a bad Titans team. Although I will say the funniest one on here, like the going to see the Miami game for $82 would be good. That Houston New Orleans game for $95. The fact that it's the most expensive one in the mid seats realm of the 4 options that are above 75 but under 100. Yeah, that's a tough sell.
Yeah. Well, you want a tougher sell? How about $20 more, $115 for Minnesota at Chicago next week? How's that sound? What the beak? Let's go Bears.
I guess that Vikings team almost beat the freaking Chiefs. So
but that's what they do.
I don't know.
They one-score games every week, and typically they've been losing them this year. Sometimes they win all their one-score games.
It's really confusing to me that this Vikings team is like objectively so much better than they were last year, and like barely has a win, but they've almost beat the Eagles and the Chiefs.
This whole episode is just going to be if it's and buts, because boy, Vikings
the Chargers. Like, what is this team?
It's a team that the luck has fully reversed from last year. Last year, they won every single one-score game against bad teams. This year, they're losing every single one-score game against good teams.
Kirk went to started smashing mirrors at a Black Cat festival or something. Like, started walking under ladders on his way to his tinfoil boat on the grill.
Yeah, took his kids to sit in like section 155, row 28 of the Twins game, just with all the Jerrys and Ginas out there of Minnesota just to hang out. Interesting Kirk year for sure.
That's a reference that is fully lost on me. I thought you were going to say like seat 13, row 13. Like, I was like, we're doing more bad luck stuff.
Kirk apparently takes Tuesdays off. Like, that's his weekly schedule.
That was a bit. Yeah.
He just found out that the Twins were in the playoffs, I guess, or just found out that playoffs start 2 days after the regular season. He was like, oh, there's a game today. Hey, buddies, let's round up the fam and go sit in the seats with everyone else. And he was like, nobody really noticed. And then clearly they started noticing. But yeah, weird to just like, you would think he'd be in a suite, but nope, he's just hanging out in the loge level with the pedestrians.
Florio had a really funny op-ed of like, this is not how you win games. How badly do you want it? Like, Mahomes isn't going to baseball games when he's a part owner of the Kansas City Royals and bought the Kansas City National Women's Soccer League team.
Dog, I had to cut videos multiple times.
I think he went during the playoffs to a game for Kansas City soccer team with Kelsey and Brittany.
I have had to cut multiple times this year videos of Mahomes like playing in celebrity softball games. Like, he's not just a baseball guy. He's involved in baseball to the fullest possible extent. Everyone's getting in on other. What's the weirdest? I know we're end of the show totally derailed at this point, but what's the weirdest one? The fact that LeBron owns part of the Red Sox, the fact that A-Rod and D-Wade own part of the Timberwolves, Mahomes, Kansas City Royals. Like, what's the weirdest athlete sports venture so far?
A-Rod was on Shark Tank. I'm not putting anything past him. It's got to be LeBron out of the spite thing. Like, just being a part owner of the Red Sox. And I don't know if being a part of that ownership group involves him with I forget what soccer team they own, but they also own the Penguins.
Liverpool, Penguins.
I didn't know if it was Liverpool or Arsenal, but I don't know if it also puts him in that mix, but
it does.
It's really funny. It's really funny he owns the Red Sox.
Yeah.
I think the funniest one is what will eventually come when Brady buys part of the Raiders. I forgot if that got finalized yet or not, but him and Mark Davis should not be a crew that is a pairing together.
Should have included that one. My mind was only going to like guys who played one sport owning a team in another, but yeah, Brady's way up there. That's going to do it. A wild and wacky discussion that's taken us in all directions has ended with LeBron owns the Red Sox. So thanks all for tuning in. Kale, what's the wild and wonkiest thing that's going to happen to you this week? For Kale, I'm Jackson. We'll see you next Tuesday.
See ya.